Farming with Nature, Creation of Riparian Buffer Strip, Scheme Requirements and Guidance. The aim of this action is to create a vegetated riparian buffer strip which prevents livestock access to the watercourse, reducing bankside erosion and watercourse pollution. It will also provide a new habitat for wildlife and form links between existing habitats. There are two riparian buffer strip options available, 2 and 7 metres. 2-metre riparian buffer strip scheme requirements. A 2-metre riparian buffer strip must be established alongside a watercourse as defined by DERA. The entire length of the watercourse along a field boundary must be fenced to ensure exclusion of livestock. In the case of internal watercourses, a riparian buffer strip must be created and fenced on both sides. Access to watercourses must not be obstructed to allow for maintenance. Work must be completed by the last day of February of the same scheme year, and riparian buffer strips must be retained for at least 15 years. In addition to these requirements, for the creation of the 7-metre riparian buffer strip, a gate at least 4.27 metres wide must be installed. And where the buffer strip is greater than 150 metres in length, another gate must be installed after each 150 metres length of fencing or part thereof. Considering location, this action is suitable for watercourses alongside grassland or arable fields, especially where there is potential to improve water quality. For example, where livestock has access to a watercourse to drink or cross, as pictured, or where there is poaching of the bank. Places where nutrient, sediment or pesticides could enter a water body, where there is very little vegetation present, would also benefit from this environmental action. There are two options for riparian buffer strips, either 2-metre or 7-metre wide. To achieve the best environmental and biodiversity benefits, the 7-metre riparian buffer is recommended. It would be best not to create this action where livestock could cross over from the other side of the watercourse which you do not control and graze the strip. As set out in scheme requirements, all riparian buffer strips must be fenced off, including those adjacent to arable fields. The fence should be located a minimum of either 2 or 7 metres from the edge of the watercourse, depending on the width of the buffer strip to be created, as illustrated in Figure 1 on the left of your screen. If there is a steep bank, the fence should be erected a minimum of either 2 or 7 metres from the top of the bank, again depending on the width of the buffer strip to be created. This is shown in Figure 2 to the right of your screen. Avoid locations where banks are likely to be undermined by erosion from the watercourse. If this happens, you will need to move the fence back and put it up again either 2 or 7 metres from the new top of the bank. The diagram demonstrates the creation of a 2-metre riparian buffer strip. 7-metre buffer strips require a higher degree of management. For 7-metre riparian buffer strips, only cut and remove the vegetation in the 5-metre of the strip running closest to the field. This should be done after the 31st of August each year. By removing the vegetation, natural plant species will be established, encouraging biodiversity, supporting watercourse bank stabilisation, and helping to manage and reduce the spread of invasive species. As explained in the requirements, all 7-metre wide riparian buffer strips require a gate and non-wooden gate posts to be installed. The minimum gate width is 4.27 metres or 14 feet. For all 7-metre riparian buffer strips greater than 150 metres in length, further gates of the same width must be installed after each 150 metre length of fencing or part thereof. Where a gate or associated supporting items are to be installed along a roadway, approval should be sought from DFI Transport NI. Good soil management in fields adjacent to the watercourse reduces runoff pressure on the buffer strip, prolonging its effectiveness and reducing maintenance costs. Planting trees can reduce potential runoff where uninterrupted slopes fall in the direction of the watercourse. For weed control, only approved herbicides may be applied to the riparian buffer if justified as part of integrated pest management, to control noxious weeds or invasive species by spot spraying. Any field application of chemical fertilizers or organic manures must be in line with current NAP regulations. To support creating riparian buffer strips, supporting items are available, some mandatory depending on the buffer strip width and some optional depending on the need to provide livestock with alternative access to drinking water. The following slides will explain what is required for each of the 4 supporting items. Protective fencing is mandatory for both 2 and 7 metre strip widths. Fencing will only be available in association with riparian buffer strips approved under this scheme. Protective fencing requirements are as follows. All fencing materials should be new, commercially available, and protect the riparian buffer strip from grazing livestock. Fencing must be permanent, the wire must be galvanized and strained to straining posts, and there must be a minimum of 5 strands of wire or sheep mesh and 2 strands of wire. Fences should be at least 1.2 meters in height from ground to the top wire, and post less than 3 meters apart. Straining posts should be less than 150 meters apart and also added at each change in direction or gradient. To allow future adjustments and prevent damage to the galvanizing, staples should be driven in at an angle but not fully home. The gate and 2 posts are optional for 2 metre and mandatory for 7 metre riparian buffer strips approved under this scheme to allow access for maintenance and to cut and remove vegetation. Requirements. Gate and posts must be new, commercially available, and protect the riparian buffer strip from grazing livestock. Posts must not be wooden. The gate must be at least 4.27 metres or 14 foot in width. It is recommended that the gate hanging and closing posts should be set in concrete, and for health and safety reasons the gate must not open outwards onto a public road. One gate must be installed at the start of every 150 metres of fencing or part thereof. Drinking troughs are an optional supporting item available for both 2 and 7 metre riparian buffer strips. Requirements. The trough must be new, commercially available, and placed on a concrete base located at least 10 metres from any watercourse. It is recommended that the concrete base is a minimum of 1.5 metres squared by 150 mils deep. Troughs should be located away from wet or waterlogged ground which is easily poached or eroded. Pasture pumps are another optional supporting item available for both 2 and 7 metre wide strips. Requirements are: the pasture pump must be new and commercially available and must be located at least 10 metres from any watercourse. It's recommended that the pipework be buried with a tubular steel guard if crossing an open drain. It is also recommended that a hard standing area be installed around the pasture pump of at least 1 metre squared to reduce poaching. More details, including specification, video materials and guidance, are available to view on the DARE website. This concludes the video. Thank you for watching.